Hi, I'm Kendall Trotter.
And I'm Steve Hawks.
Thanks for tuning in to this edition of the Las Vegas Real Estate Update. Today we have a very special guest with us, Steve, and we're going to be talking about builder loan fraud. A lot of people didn't know that this existed, and probably most people out there still don't know until they're watching this.
They'll know today that it existed, and a lot of the homeowners in these areas know that there's something wrong. They just don't know what. And a lot of builders were selling homes like hotcakes, and today we're going to find out why they're selling like hotcakes. And our special guest is an insider from a former builder, not just a builder, but one of the largest builders in the country, Dana Ellis. How you doing today, Dana?
Great. How are you?
Thanks for stopping in.
Oh, no problem.
Could this be one of the reasons that we see many of the brand new home neighborhoods with for sale sign, bank repo,
Sure.
bank repo, bank repo,
Of course.
bank repo? It seems like the newer neighborhoods have been hit much harder than seasoned areas.
The number one reason for the high rate of foreclosure in new home areas, a lot of new home areas, is fraud. Whether the builder knew about it or they didn't. In this particular case, the builder not only knew about it, but they encouraged it, not only with the buyers and the sellers, obviously the builder, but also the employees involved, from the title company, the mortgage company, and the employees. And today we're going to discuss in details.
Absolutely.
So what we're talking about is this cash back. The builder needs a price of $300. Now, in order to push these houses, they would offer $200,000, $150,000 cash back incentives, or they would do stuff to the buyer. What would they do?
Correct. There were several ways the builders marketed the homes and what they call incentive packages. It went anywhere, Steve, from your home came with a free swimming pool, which
We all want that.
absolutely to we
What do I sign?
were buying cars, automobiles. We paid off your debt. If you owed American Express $20,000, we paid it off.
So let's be specific here. So you're trying to tell me, which I already know is true because I've seen it happen, especially with this builder. The people would go in and they wouldn't be able to qualify for the loan, or they'd be on the fence, or they'd want some kind of car or whatever other material thing, and they would buy a house, and the builder would pay off their credit card,
Yes.
buy them a car. In
That's-
fact, you were telling me that you actually knew of someone, they actually bought them a Mercedes.
Yes.
And what they would do is they would put this in the loan and give the cash back to the buyer.
Correct. Well, we wrote checks to Mercedes-Benz, and we actually, seen check requests come through the accounting department wherein we, not myself, I am not a publicly traded builder, however, there were checks directly
You were an eyewitness to this. You
I was an
never
eyewitness to
participated
this.
in
I never signed checks. However, there were checks directly to the vendors. When I say vendors, it could have been anywhere from licensed contractors that, of course, everybody knows a contractor. Your buddy might be a
in Vegas,
home
we don't
contractor.
have to-
So real quickly. So I bought a house, someone bought a house, and they wanted $200,000 back. Obviously, the lender is not going to do this. So
No, they got creative and they found ways to do it.
and they would
Wherein-
write a check. They would write a check to a contractor that was a friend of the buyer or the buyer's agent.
Yes, that's correct. Absolutely.
And then the contractor would give this money to the buyer or the buyer's agent.
Yes. We were also encouraged to bump up the agent's commission, wherein the agent was kicking the cash back to the buyer. That was another creative
I
way.
think we were talking before the show, you had told me that a lot of these places that have a lot of the foreclosure problems, most of these homes were sold by a few agents.
They're right. There was most realtors wouldn't participate in this, but once you get the word of mouth going, how hard is it to sell a home when you tell somebody, hey, they're going to give you $150,000 back, we'll pay off your credit cards, we'll buy you a car, we'll put in a pool. The average kickback or incentive, whatever you want to call it, was what, $100,000, $200,000?
Typically on the home prices we were moving, it was anywhere, the incentive packages were $50,000 to $100,000.
Was
Depending
that
on probably the purchase price of the house.
Absolutely.
plus the 8 to 10% commission?
Yes, and then they offered bonuses on top of the commission.
So on a $500,000 house, you're looking at anywhere from $100,000 to $200,000 going back in buyer incentives
Absolutely.
and sales commission.
Yes, that's correct.
Now, obviously, we all know that no lender is going to approve this, ever. Institutional investors would never buy these loans. So how did they get how did they hide this from the lender? Now, let's make a clarification. Your loan officer is not the lender that we're talking about, because the loan officer is usually just a broker. And in fact, in this case, I think when this builder couldn't do it, they would send it to a broker, but I believe that the builder's mortgage company was also a broker.
Absolutely. It's kind of ironic that the builder owned their own mortgage and title company. So in all actuality, I think it was a little easier to push under, given the fact that they were in direct contact owning those companies. There was what was called an incentive addendum, which spelled out all the incentives, the incentive package for that home, that particular home. That incentive addendum never went to the direct underwriter of that loan. So whoever wrote the loan for that property never saw the incentives.
The addendum was taken out of the file.
Absolutely. The addendum, the contract specialist was instructed to pull each and every addendum out of the package that went over to title and
So there's a person that took, under direction of their boss, and obviously this was not a small operation, they were directed from the VPs of the areas, obviously, to do this. So what happened to those addendums? Are they, obviously the institutional investor never saw this, because they would never have bought the loan.
Absolutely, the investor, had they found out
When we say
about these
investor, we
special
mean
incentives.
institutional investor.
The institutional lender that lent the funds to purchase the home is what we speak about when we say the institutional lender. Yes, they were not informed about the creative ways that these home builders were selling and moving the massive and large amounts of homes that they did sell.
So these lenders, thinking they're making a loan of 80% loan to value, they think they're lending $500,000. They think they're lending $420,000 or $400,000 on a $500,000 property,
Correct.
but they're really lending $420,000 on a $300,000 property. Not to mention the second that probably went on there to make it the 500. So the second is completely wiped out.
Correct. Most of these deals were 80, 20, 100% financing. So on top of the buyers getting all the incentives and the agents, with the high co-ops and bonuses, the buyers never came in with a penny to close these homes.
My question would be, though, who's at fault here? Is it the buyers? I would say not. They were advertised to, and they took advantage of
Absolutely
the deal.
not.
Well, that question, we're going to answer. I see we're running out of time. We're going to answer that question in part 2. Please look for our part 2 episode of this builder fraud, you might want to call it, builder mortgage fraud. We'll be
back soon with episode 2. I'm Kendall Trotter.
I'm Steve Hawks.
Dana, thanks for stopping in, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.